Hi, I'm Old Norse specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. I'm back today to continue my series of videos reading through Hávamál in Old Norse, stanza by stanza, explaining the Old Norse as I go. This is done as a companion video series to my new edition of Hávamál called the Wanderer's Hávamál, which includes the Old Norse text derived straight from the Codex Regius manuscript, as well as on facing pages, my English translation, and a commentary, in addition to some related texts about Odin and his Valkyries, and of course, my Cowboy Hávamál. So, in this video, I'll be covering stanzas 104 to 120 of Hávamál, and please keep in mind all of the usual precautions and disclaimers. I'm using reconstructed 1200s Old Norse pronunciation, not modern Icelandic pronunciation. The text that you will see on the screen is that of the Codex Regius, not the more archaized text that you will often see online, and etc. See the first video for complete disclaimers, if you will. All right, stanza 104. In aldnajötun exota, nu emek after komin. Fort gatek thegjandi þar. Morgum orðum melta ekki minn frama, I sutungs solum. I sought or visited Exota, the aged giant in aldnajötun. I am now come back, ek em nu komin, after I have now come back. I got little, ek got fort, silently, thegjandi, thar, there. I spoke, ek melta, many words, morgum orðum, into my fame, I min frama, or into my cause, presumably in support of my cause, in the halls, I solum, of Suttungr, Suttungs. Now this is the story of Odin retrieving Óðrerir, the mead that makes its drinker a poet. That story is told in great detail in Skáldskáparmál, the second part of Snorri Sturluson's prose Edda. But there the story is told in a very different way. Snorri does say that Odin went to Suttungr, specifically to his daughter Gunnlod, who lives inside of a cave, to get a drink of the mead. But he says that Odin got into the cave by using a drill. In this story, it seems that he gets out of the cave by using a drill, and there are several other details that seem related, but differently used. 105. Gunnlod merum gaf gulnum stóli á, drykk in stýra mjadar. Iðgjól letek hana eftir hafa, sínsins heila hugar, sínsins svara seva. Gunnlod gave me, on a golden chair or stool, all golnum stóli, a drink of the precious mead, drykk in stýra mjadar. I let her, ek let hana, have afterwards, hava eftir, bad repayment, iðgjól, for her whole mind, since heila hugar, presumably her trusting mind, right? She gives him her whole mind, her whole heart and trust, for her heavy mind, her troubled mind, since svara seva. You could also say bad repayment for her whole heart, since I did mention in the last video that hugar is often used metaphorically, or not metaphorically, but abstractly in a similar way to how we use heart. And since there are other little hints that in this version of the story Odin might have married Gunnlod, that may also be an acceptable translation. 106. Ratamun letumk rums få och grjót gnaga. Över och under stóðumk jotna vägir, svå hetta ek hofði till. All right, I let the mouth of Rati, mun rata. Now Rati is what the drill is named in Snorri's version of this. Get room for rooms, for me. Now for me is the mk, the suffix to letu. This is somewhat rare, but sometimes in Old Norse poetry you can see the pronoun mik or mer suffixes an mk to a verb that it is not the object to. We'll see that a little bit later in the same stanza too. So I let it get room for me, make room for me, and gnaw the rock, ok gnaga grot. Giants' roads, jotna veger, presumably rocks, because giants and such creatures are often said to live in rocks and mountains and stones, stood over and under me, stodu iver ok under, and then the me, mer, is again suffixed as mk to the verb stodu, which it is not the object of. So I risked my head, svo hatta ek hovdi, and the till too for this purpose perhaps. Vel koipt litar hevi ek vel notit, fos frodum vant. Því at ódreirir nú uppkomin, og aldaves jadar. I have used well ek hevi notit well purchased looks or appearance, vel koipt litar. Little is wanting for the wise. So vant, vant is wanting, is lacking. What is lacking? Fos, little, that's in the genitive. For what individuals is it lacking? Frodum, so little is lacking for the wise. Because ódreirir, the mead, Tviat ódreirir, has now come up, nu komin up, on the rim, or yadar, of the sacred place, ves, of men, alda. Now in that last line, the manuscript says, o alda ves yardar, which would be on the earth's possessive of the sacred place of men. Now that gives us no object for the preposition o, and there's also something wrong because you may remember I mentioned in a previous video that in a C line of Load-Fafnir, this is the meter that most of Hávamál is in. You can see video, I'll link at the top right corner for an explanation about more of Load-Fafnir. You cannot have a two-syllable word, the first syllable of which is metrically heavy, in a C line. So metrically heavy means it has a long vowel or a short vowel followed by two consonants, which yarth does. So in addition to not giving us an object for the preposition, we also have that metrical difficulty. So the classic emendation that I accept is to make this yadar, rim, rather than earth's possessive. So the rim of the sacred place of men presumably being Midgard. That suggests that Odin, after he took Odhrir, the mead, went to Midgard. That's not implausible from a storytelling perspective. After all, men do have somehow access to Odhrir, since some men can be poets. But it's still odd, and there may be something wrong with this line. There's another emendation you'll see sometimes, which makes this o alda ves yadars, so, or o alda ve yadars, so changing ves to accusative ve, so this onto the sacred place of the Lord yadars of men, alda, so presumably to Odin's sacred place, Valhall, or maybe Osgard or something like that. However, the syntax of that is really weird from an Old Norse perspective. Although word order in Old Norse is freer than in English, you don't typically have that that framing genitive like that with the object between two genitives that are related to one another. So I still think the classic emendation to yadar makes the best sense, and is also metrically a little bit better. 108. Ivi mer o, atek vera en komin, jotna gordum or. Evek Gunnlodar ne nyttak, en godu konu, therar logthum arm yvir. There is doubt on me, ivi o mer, that I would become out, or that I would become again, atek vera komin en, out of, or, the giant's enclosures, jotna gordum. Now I've mentioned before that Old Norse uses this word garður, enclosure, meaning the enclosure around a house. So actually I'm within a garður right now. This is the fence that surrounds the house, keeps the cows out. So similarly, this is the enclosure of the giants, parallel to the Midgarður, the enclosure, the middle enclosure where humans live, and the Osgarður, the god enclosure, where gods live. Of course, typically their world or realm is called Jotunheimr, giant home, not Jotna. Garðr, parallel with Midgarðr, Osgarðr, but this could be seen as a parallel to those place names. So I doubt that I would have come out of Jotunheim, closer to the giants, if I did not use Gunnlod, if ek ne nytta Gunnlodar, that good woman, and our Goda Kono, that one that I laid my arm over, therar logðum arm yfir. Now logðum is an old Norwegian past first singular to leggja, to lay. In Old Norwegian, you sometimes see as a first singular ending, not just as a first plural ending. So that is why I write that K with an apostrophe, meaning that it is the suffix ek. This isn't the mediopassive ending umk. 109. Ins hindradags gengu hrím thorsar, hova roths at fregna, hova hollu I. At bolverki þeir spurðu, ef hann væri með bondum kominn, eða hefði honum suttungur of sowit. So the next day, ins hindra dags. Now that phrase is curious because it is only used outside of Hávamál in context meaning the day after a wedding. Again, remember there are hints in this version of the story that this is that there was a wedding between Odin and Gunnlod. So the next day, perhaps the next day after a wedding, the ice giants, Hrimthursar, went Gengu to ask Odin's advice at Fregna Hova Roths, Hova being genitive singular of Hovi, a name of Odin meaning either the High One or the One-Eyed One, which of course is in the title of Hávamál, Words of Odin, Words of the High One or the One-Eyed. In the hall of Hovi, I Hova Holu. They asked about Bolverk. Þeir spurðu at Bolverki. Now Bolverker, evildoer, is the name that Snorri says that Odin assumed when he went to fetch the mead. If he had come among the gods, if hann væri kominn með bondum, or had Suttungur killed him, eða hefði Suttungur sowit honum. 110. Baug eið Odin hug ek at unnit hafi, what skal hans trygdum trúa? Suttungsvikkin hann let sumli frá, og grötta Gunnlodu. I think ek hug, of course this teller is Odin, so this is kind of funny. I think Odin had sworn hafi unnit a ring oath, baug eið. Oaths on rings being particularly sacred, judging from hints in, for instance, Landnámabók. How, now what, of course means just what, but it, in Eddic poetry especially, can mean other question words like why or how. How shall one, skal, unstated subject, trust trúa his promises, hans trygdum, right? Who can trust Odin? He left from the banquet, han let frá sumli. Or from the banquet he left Suttung, betrayed, lied to, deceived, sviken, and Gunnlod having been caused to weep, grötta. So he left from the banquet with Suttung betrayed and Gunnlod weeping. Now, the Bauggeith could have been his wedding oath. Gunnlod may be weeping because she's been left at the altar, as it were, and this banquet, the symbol, may in fact be a wedding reception. So a very different story from the story that Snorri tells, which you can see some more details about in my video about Odrir, which I'll link in a card in the top right. Now in 111, we begin a distinct section of Hávamál. This is marked as a distinct section in the Codex Regius manuscript itself, where this section begins with a big letter M, almost marking it out as a separate poem. This is traditionally called by modern scholars Load-Fafnir, the words for Load-Fafnir. We also see that name in some early paper manuscripts of Hávamál. And it is addressed for the most part to somebody named Load-Fafnir, which would have to mean something like Shaggy Embracer. Who exactly this is, lots of people, enthusiastic people, think they have an answer for you, but in fact we have no solid hints about who this individual might be, if it is in fact meant to be a specific individual and not just kind of a place name, a placeholder name, for any of us who might be hearing this. All right, 111. Mol erat thylja, thular stóli ó, urðar brunni at. Så ekok thagdag, så ekok hugdag, hluta ek o manam hol. Of runar hörða ek döma, ne róðum þogðu, hofa hollu at, hofa hollu í, hörða ek segja svo. It is time mol to speak at thulja on the thular's chair, or thular stóli. Now that thular, we've mentioned this word before, archaic word seeming to mean an old office of orator, formal speaker, and thylja is a verb related to that, so to make formal speech. So it is time to make a thular's sort of speech on a thular's sort of chair. And of course we saw previously in another stanza, I believe in 80, that Odin is called Fimbulthulr, the mighty Thular. So presumably this is his chair. At the well of Urðr, at Brunni Urðar. This, of course, Urðr being one of the three Norns, the beings who determine fate in Norse myth. I saw and I was silent, saw ekok thagdag. I saw and I thought, saw ekok hugdag. I listened to men's speech, ek hluta o manamol. I heard tell of runes, ek hörða döma of runar. They were not silent with counsels. Ne þogðu róðum. At the hall of Odin, at Hávamál, in the hall of Odin, I Hávamál. I heard someone say so. Ek hörða segja svo. And then many of these stanzas begin with the same 4 lines. I won't always repeat these. Róðum hver Load-Fafnir at þú róð nemir, njóta mundu ef þú nemr, þér munu góð ef þú getur. Now these 4 lines, which begin so many of the stanzas in this section, mean, I advise you, Load-Fafnir, and that's that old Norwegian first singular ending that looks like a first plural ending, So the K is the suffix ek, I advise, Róðum. In standard Old West Norse, Old Icelandic, that would be ek rad, or rad ek, radk. I advise you, there, Load-Fafnir, that you take my advice, at þú nemir róð. You will profit if you learn, muntu, with thu suffix to munt as u, you will profit, njóta, if you learn, ef þú nemur. They will be good, with be and they left out. Will good be for you, munu go there, if you get, if you learn, if you take, if you observe them, use them, if þú getur. All right, so this one is Not þú risat nema o njósin ser, eða þú leitir there innan útstadar. Don't rise, ris at, so this is an imperative, ris, rise, is a command, but with at, the negative suffix. Don't rise at night, note, you, thu, unless you are, nema ser, on spying, on njósin, so don't get up at night unless you're spying, or eða, from inside, innan, you search for yourself, thu leitir there, a place outside, stadar ut, which all translators and interpreters I'm aware of from the 19th century on at least have interpreted as don't get up at night unless you are spying or you are looking for a place to relieve yourself. Perhaps odd counsel for us to receive from a god, but there it is. 113, after the usual opening formula, Fjol kunigri konu, skalatu I fadmi sova, swa at hon lykke thik lidum. You shall not, so there we have the negative suffix at plus thu suffixed as to. So you shall not, skalatu, sleep in the embrace, sova I fadmi, of a magical knowing woman, fjol kunigri konu, so don't sleep in the embrace of a witch. The embrace is treated as a body part here, so we have the possessor of the embrace, the witch, in the dative rather than in the genitive. So that she may lock, swat hon liki, the limbs she may lock you thick with regard to your limbs, lidum. But she'll lock your limbs. 114, hon svo görir at þú goir eigi, thinks ne þjóðans mols. Matu villat ne manskis gaman, fer þú sorgafullur at sova. She so does that you not care at thu eigi goir, and then you go, you care for or heed something in the genitive, so you won't care about the thing, right, the counsel, nor the speech, mols, of a prince, theovans. You won't want food through villat mat, nor joy of a man, ne gaman manskis, nor joy of no man, manskis gaman. So, because Old Norse can use double negatives. So you won't want, the company of friends, the joy of being with someone. You go through fair, sorrowful, sorgafuller, at sova, to sleep. 115, after the usual formula, Annars konu, toigdu ther aldregi, oira runu at. So, aldregi, never, you lead toigdu, for yourself there, right? All these, what I call demi-datives all over Old Norse and Hávamál. So never lead or seduce another's woman, annars konu, at oira runu. Now, oira is ear. Runa is often used for someone who shares your secrets. So don't lead her, don't seduce her into sharing your secrets. Now, rune can also be a whisper. So you might think of this as being, you don't seduce her with whispers. But most literally, don't seduce her into being your ear whisper sharer, ear secret sharer into your mistress. Don't seduce other men's women. 116. O fjalli eða firði ef þig kvara tíðir, fosk du at virði vel. If you happen, especially if you want or if you often go fara yourself, if you often yourself travel thick, on a mountain or a fjord, or fjalli eða firði, so by land or by sea, get for yourself fosk thu, and that thu is suffixed to fosk, get oneself as two, well at virði, well with regard to a meal. So basically, when you travel, provide well for yourself when it comes to provisions and meals. 117, after the usual opening formula, illan man lotu aldregi, óhopp at þeir vita, því at af illum manni ferðu aldregi, gjalt in skóða hugar. Never let, aldregi lot, thu suffixed as to, a bad man, illan man, know, vita, unlocks, óhopp, at there, about yourself. So never let a bad man know about your bad luck, your bad fortunes, your unhappiness. Hope, of course, being related to English happy. Because from a bad man, tviat of illamani, you never get thu aldregi fair, repayment, gold, for your good mind, ins goda hugar. So for trusting a bad man, you'll never get good repayment. And I'm translating ins the your there because often when something is yours, this is described as the, if the context is clear. 118. Over labita exo einum hall, orð illrar konum, flóróð tunga varð honum at fjörlagi, og þaugi sana sok. I saw the words of a bad woman, orð illrar konu, bite, bita, a man, einum hall, high, overla. So presumably like in his neck. I saw a bad woman's words bite a man in his neck, maybe. A deceit counseling tongue, flóróð tunga, became for him, varð honum, the at, with regard to, but it became his life-laying, his fjörlog, his death. And though not, ok þó eigi, for a true cause, sana sok. 119, after the usual formula, veitstu, ef þú vinot, þans þú vel trúir, farðu at finna opt. Því at hrisi vex og hofu grassi, vegar vatki tröður. You know, if you have a friend that you trust well, if þú ot vin, þans þú trúir vel, go to find him often. Farðu at finna oft. Again, we can leave out objects even if the context is clear. Because thviat, a road, vegar, grows vex with weeds, hrisi, and high grass, hovu grassi, which no one treads, which no one walks, ervetki treder. 120, after the usual formula. Góðan mann tøgðu þér at gaman runum, og nem líknar galdur meðan þú lifir. So you draw, tøgðu, a good man, góðan mann, to joy talks, gaman runum. Now, rune, of course, can just mean rune. It can also mean talk. And that seems to be the sense here, because elsewhere in Old Norse, gaman rune are joy runes, means joyful talks, joyful words. Even though the next line is about magic. And learn, ok nem, healing magic, liknar galdur, while you live, meðan þú lifir. And by the way, this thing about leading a good man in joyful talk is a little bit like Hugsvinsmal. Remember I mentioned that. That's the Leo the Halter translation of Cato's Distichs into Old Norse. Stanza 102, we have these lines, Gaman samlig ljóð skalt af greppum nema og morg fröði muna. Similar sentiment, you shall learn from men joyful songs and remember much wisdom. So maybe this thing about learning or drawing someone into joyful talk, is a fairly old notion. But anyway, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with magic. In spite the word rune, that is one of the places in my later translation of the Wanderer's Hávamál that I changed translation a little bit more noticeably from the translation I originally did 9 years ago that appears in the Poetic Edda. All right, well, I hope this series has continued to be useful or interesting for you. I hope that it has generated perhaps some interest in checking out the Wanderer's Hávamál, which of course includes the Old Norse text derived from the manuscript, along with my English translation, my commentary, related text, and of course, the Cowboy Hávamál. For now, from beautiful Wyoming, let me wish you all the best.